This is Mandatory Listening. I'm your host, Kent Mann. Each week, we sit down over a cup of coffee and discuss interesting topics in the world of the customer experience. Welcome back to Mandatory Listening. This is Kent Mann, and I'm joined today by Dan Mann.
Good morning, afternoon, evening.
Wherever you are.
Hi.
Yeah. Dan Mann, you are a hard man to track down.
It's been that kind of a year so far.
Yeah.
Delta loves me.
They do love you.
It's mid-March. I have 120,000 miles year to date.
It's not okay.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, it does slow down in about 2 weeks and starts to feel like normal life again. But it has been an incredible quarter.
I think your bed misses you, and you miss your bed.
I do. I absolutely do. So glad to be home for 24 hours before I head out tomorrow.
Yeah, the travel for a living is not as glorious as people make it seem in the movies.
No, it's no.
So I was talking with our good friend, our coworker, Tony Tanner, the other day, and we were talking about Star Wars and Game of Thrones, as we do. And I was wondering, who is your favorite Star Wars character?
Well, who said Tony's my good friend?
I think he's listening to this right now.
My favorite character, so Han Solo. You know, he's just outside the Force. He sees the Force. He's not a believer in the Force. But yeah, he kind of is. Just kind of in his own macho and weird way. He embraces it. And I get, especially in the more recent movies, just his relationship with his son and all the weirdness associated with dad and son stuff. I just get a feel for that. He's been the story I've enjoyed.
You saw the first movie in 1977? 1971.
No, it was 7, yes.
1977?
Yeah.
In theaters, was Han Solo your favorite character then too?
Oh, what a question. I think everybody that watched the first movie without any context of any other movies just immediately fell in love with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the great story of the unknown hero who was thrust into the experience of having to be the hero and he wasn't prepared for it. So it's the great thing about the Star Wars story. There's something for everybody. It's people have incredible levels of passion about this, incredible levels of opinion about this, and that's why it's so great. So I would say over the years of watching all of these things unfold, I find compelling stories through every character and every single one of the movies. I mean, yeah. So that's, for me at that time, it was just fun to watch this young guy be thrust into the limelight and have to make hard choices.
Yeah, I think Luke has gotten a lot of flack since it came out, just because of his acting skills and his style didn't really manifest itself in the fifth or sixth one as people wanted it to. And I was just thinking, like, as you were talking, what if there was like one of the great actors of today who just go fully into a role like Christian Bale or like Heath Ledger when he was still alive, like these people who took movies to the next level. What if you had that type of character in playing Luke Skywalker?
I would offer a counter opinion. I think actually the approachability of the Star Wars movies is sort of the everyman view of, Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but now that you brought it up, I like the topic a lot.
Yeah.
Can we just do that as the podcast?
I think we can, because we've got pounds of material lined up for this.
I think what makes that movie and this character great is it is about the story. Yeah. It is about, especially in the raw first 3 movies, episodes 4, 5, and 6, just the realness of it.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I don't know that you could have put a greater actor into the Luke Skywalker role and had them carry it different. I'm sure this is the minority opinion. I'm certain that the vast majority of Star Wars fans would see this as the wrong way of looking at it. But I kind of like the fact that it's a very approachable person, very human, very full of mistakes all through all of the movies.
Yeah.
Where's his great acting skills? No, I like to see the guy have lots of flaws.
Yeah.
And it's good in the acting behavior, and it's certainly good in the way it plays on film.
Yeah.
So it's certainly been elevated to icon status as a movie series, but to me, I was very comfortable with it throughout.
Yeah, definitely. So that's it for this week's Star Wars podcast. No, I'm just kidding. So today we are not just talking about Star Wars. As we do, we ramble. We're talking about a team. And the topic that we came up with was, how do you make a team feel like a team? And that's kind of a generic, non-useful question for a lot of people. But let's say, Dan, you've been part of a lot of teams and you've led a lot of teams. What are some characteristics of just a team in general?
Okay. Well,
and how do you know when you have a team? Is it just, I pick you and you and you, and there we go, let's do it?
Well, it is actually that simple. So we're all working together. We're in the same spot, whether we like it or not. What's the hashtag squad goals? So,
Stop. No, it's not that.
well, it's the idea of this is the team I want to be on.
Yeah.
And whether it was, 8th grade soccer, or whether it was 3rd grade spelling bee, or some other thing that you were with a group on, it's that you're working together towards some sort of common goal. And it's very satisfying, and it's also very maddening to be on a team where you've got a great team chemistry, you've got a great team leader, you've got the opportunity to succeed and thrive, or unfortunately, in some cases, you lose. So I think a team is that group of people working together for a common cause.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts about being a human, really. And I mentioned something like this with Tony, but how we have the ability to communicate however we choose to in a million different ways, whether it's our body language, the words that we use, physical touch, or whatever. We communicate in so many different ways. So to feel like being part of a team, being a good team player, being a good leader of a team, all of these are pretty human skills that no matter like cross-culturally, cross-industry, it's a theme that unites us, that we work together for a common goal. So it should be second nature to us to be a pretty good part of a team.
It should be, but oftentimes when you take the word team and bring it into the workplace, there's a dissonance that can exist, because team feels like something I signed up for, something I enrolled to, something I want to be a part of. But there are a lot of workplaces that are not team driven. They're competitive internally. There is dysfunction internally. And so just because I work in an environment where other people work does not mean I have a team.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of having your work team feel like a team is a pretty good description of what we're focused on. It's how do you create an environment where people work together and it does feel like we are working together towards a common goal, which is not always the case.
Right. And I think, too, oftentimes, whether it's a blame game or even for the praise on the opposite side, when things go good or when things go bad, it's blamed on the team or it's given to the team. And I think some of the best teams, of course, depending on the situation, depending on the circumstance, the best teams are a group of hardworking individuals that are able to communicate clearly. So each person has their own set of skills. It's not that there were 4 of us doing great work and one of us was not doing great work, though that wouldn't be considered a great team. And so how do you define the role of each person in the team?
Well, you've hit on the very first element of a great team, and that is that a team has to have all of their contributions defined. I remember, Kent, a conversation that you had that I was listening to with the coach that recruited you to UNC Charlotte, Mackenzie. What was her last name?
Wartenberger.
She was at the time the mid-distance coach. I think she's now at Utah. I hope you're listening, Mackenzie, because your legend continues on in the life of Kent Mann, even though it was brief.
Yeah.
But she talked about how the members of the team, and you were at that time cross country and track for UNC Charlotte. And her comment, you may not recall, was that different members of the team make different contributions. Some people are going to score on, at the track meet. They're going to get points, and they're going to get points for the team, and we want them to show up on race day and perform. But other people, their contribution to the team is they're great in practice. They are the ones motivating and inspiring other people, and they're the ones out there that are pushing everyone else to a different level in their consistent practice and the disciplines about the workouts and the putting in the miles. And there's another role that's great grades and really doing the study and tutoring other members of the team and making sure that the academic component was also in place. And she described that in a very powerful way, that just scoring on race day is not necessarily the only contribution of a team member. So the first step is to define what's your contribution. What is it we're expecting of you? What is it we want you to contribute to this overall team? Because it's going to be different across the board.
Yeah, it's like that triple Venn diagram of course, our listeners wouldn't know it was a Venn diagram, but when we were talking about hiring, where it's commitment, technical skills, people skills, and you have to have that blend of 3 different people for them to be part of your team, when you're hiring somebody. And I think that's the same way it is with across teams, where let's say for the track example, you are really good under pressure is one of the big circles or whatever, or you're great on race day or something. The other one is you've got a certain amount of hard work, dedication that, if you put in the hours, results come from that and you appreciate that. And then the third is everything else in your life in balance? And that's like almost like the commitment piece of like, I'm really good on race day and I work really hard, but also I have this crazy ex-girlfriend or boyfriend that causes me to be distracted half the time. And so sometimes I'm missing practice or whatever. And so, I think defining those roles and like, let's bring this down to earth is how do you define those roles? Is it by past behavior? What have you done in the past? Or is it, where do you want to be? What are your goals? How much money do you want to make? X, Y, or Z?
All of the above.
Yeah.
But it starts with what does the team need?
Right.
So really the contribution has to be initiated from and comes from what does the organization need? Then we find the people that contribute by being good at that, also B, wanting to do that, and finding motivation and incentive in that. And, I will say that in the Man Group organization, we're an organization full of multiple accounts and relationships with multiple trainers who traveled multiple times. One of the key contributors in our business is Jen Keith. And Jen Keith is the guardian of the calendar. And it's something I don't like. I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it, but I do know what happens in my life if that calendar is not maintained.
Yeah.
If the calendar is not maintained, none of the things that we do are very good. So someone's got to be good at it, want to do it, have a skill set for it, have the capacity for it. And if that's the case, then guess what? We've got a team member contributing at a very high level. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, it almost it reminded me of Simon Sinek's Start With Why. You got to come up with why you need a team. What's your team's purpose? What's the goal of the team? Are you revolving around revenue? How much revenue do you want to make? And so if you start with that basis of what is the team, what is the definition of the team? If one of the parameters, it has to be 5 people or less, it's pretty important. If it has to be diverse, quote unquote, like that's important too. So how do we determine what diversity is? What is good diversity? What does bad diversity look like? And then you play this out in a situation. So my next question then is, who is determining this team? Is it the owner? Is it the people who see all the staff every day, see the team day to day? Who is the guardian of this?
Yeah, so it's a couple of answers, and you answered it really well. It starts with the ownership of the business. So the owner of the business, the owners of the business have to establish, if we establish what is the contribution we want of this team, what's the output of having this team in place, then the ownership also determines the makeup of that team. I do find sometimes teams go their own way without really considering what's in the best interest of the vision or the mission of the organization. So the company and its clarity around vision and mission, then the team is subservient to that. That's the way I look at it. But within the team, there has to be a team leader. There has to be someone that's sort of in the context that we're talking about, of course, in specialty business or in small business or in specialty retail. It's the person that's consumer facing or customer facing that's also leading that team. And internally in the Man Group, we call that a player coach.
Yeah.
It's someone who both is on the team but is also leading the team. Mm-hmm. Maybe the analogy for a football game would probably be the quarterback.
Yeah.
Or in baseball, might be the catcher who watches the whole game and directs the game. The point guard in basketball, the list goes on and on. So it's the captain of the team, and it's someone who understands the dynamic of the team and the performance of the team.
Yeah, so the player coach gets the job done. It doesn't matter if the job is working.
Gets today's work done today.
It doesn't matter if the job is working. It doesn't matter if the strategy is working. Let's say before the game, the coach, the actual coach, or in this case, the owner, comes forward and said, this is the goal.
Yes.
And this is the way we're going to get to the goal.
Yes.
And then the player coach is responsible for completing that goal, even if it's not the optimum way of doing it.
Okay, right.
You see what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
So is it the owner's job? The owner is constantly, or the coach, let's say like Mike Krzyzewski on basketball, he's saying this play is not working or this setup is not working. So we've got a timeout, pull people in, and now we've got to change things up.
Yeah. Why did you have to bring up Mike Krzyzewski? Things were going fine.
Because I know how much you like him.
Things were going fine.
Yeah.
To be clear, I think Krzyzewski is the greatest coach of all time.
Yeah.
To be also clear, I despise Duke with every passion within my. But anyway, let's get on to it.
Yeah.
Let's get on to your question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what drives all that, Kent. It's that the owner or the business itself is clear in establishing its vision.
Yeah.
What is it that we are intending to do here, and its mission?
Win games.
Yeah. How do we go about doing that? What's our approach to getting that done?
Yeah.
Then it's that the team player and player coach role to execute on that vision.
Yeah.
And the better job an owner can do of aligning team members and especially a player coach to that vision and the parameters of a mission, then we're going to get the work done. And hey, we may have to make adjustments along the way, but at least we're all still in alignment with the approach.
Yeah. So let's talk about when you've worked on a team, especially in a sales environment, which is a different dynamic of team because you guys were commission based. So, like when we've done the compensation podcasts, the biggest feedback we've gotten is, or before we talk about commission, people are saying we don't want to encourage a competitive environment. We want our customers to feel very safe, feel like they're not being upsold, anything like that. So in the air of a competitive environment of commission, of accountability, results-based pay, how do you make that team feel like a team? Is it have a pizza party? Is it bring everyone in for the mission of the day every single day? Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
And I've got 10 things written here on my list to chat. None of them have the word pizza in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when it comes to making that team feel like they're part of a team and contributing, we started with defining the contribution. Let's be clear about what this team is supposed to be bringing to the table.
Yeah, the team has to perform to something.
Yeah. So that means that first and foremost, the organization has to measure the performance of the team. It doesn't matter what sport, if we were to talk about sport or if we talk about marching band competition or we talk about debate club or we talk about, being a celebrity chef, all of those teams are measured. Mm-hmm. They are evaluated. And, a great restaurant and the behavior of the kitchen is clearly evaluated through the public commerce and through everything from Yelp to a TripAdvisor, and the list goes on and on of evaluating how many stars of an event they are, how many stars of a kitchen they are. But so first and foremost, in the context of our listeners and the business you're running, you must measure the performance of the team and the performance of the individuals on that team. And in fact, if there's any one thing that tends to be, a sore point for the specialty retail world and small business in general, we're very reluctant to measure individual contribution.
Yeah.
Well, if you want a team member to feel like they're part of a team, then show them how their contribution is adding value to the team.
Yep.
Everyone needs to know that what I'm doing has a result, and those results are helping the team to a factor of X.
Yep.
And you measure that through a lot of different ways depending on your team's goal. But let's just say it's a sales team. How do you have a sales team with a team environment if those results are not calculated, measured, and actually communicated to the organization as a scoreboard, as it were,
and taught to, like giving feedback on improvement?
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you have measurement, then you have to have transparency, which means how are we doing? How's it going? What's everyone's contribution on the team, and what are the overall team goals?
Yep.
So that we can understand that what we're doing is actually working.
Do you think this is a one-on-one meeting or a group meeting?
Well, it starts with group measurement. So we have to have the large group contribution that's everyone can see the score. If you're playing a football game, it doesn't take long to look up and go, how are we doing? Well, there it's right up there.
Yeah.
It's 5 different numbers. Your score, my score, how much time is left, how many timeouts we have left, and whatever the other measurement is.
Yeah.
But there it is. Now, you can break it down to see who's offsides or who's got throwing interceptions or who's had fumbles. Or who's making tackles. If you watch any sort of sporting event, the commentators and the broadcast are continuing to tell you how the individuals are contributing.
And you're measuring relevant data points, not, how many, what was the time difference between the first time out and the second time out? It's like that's a metric. Yeah, for sure. We're measuring stuff, but it's not relevant to the goal of winning the game.
How many steps did he take?
Yeah. Last game we took 2 timeouts within 3 minutes of each other, guys. Come on. Next time we got to get going.
We got to have, at least a 5-minute
Come on.
gap
What'd you even
between
talk
timeouts.
about?
Yeah. So measuring and transparency around it is crucial. But you asked a great question. Is this a group evaluation? Is this individual? So I think we have to celebrate team wins, but I do think we also have to celebrate individual wins.
Yeah.
So we've got to call out the individuals that are making contribution and are getting results individually. We've got to call that out in the same way that we have to pull individuals aside when they are not contributing, and we must make sure we're in alignment and agreement on the vision. And we have to offer ongoing training and ongoing development to ensure that the individual contribution matches the team contribution that we're all focused on.
Yeah.
So these are crucial. So I think it's incumbent upon the owner and the leader of the team to measure and then respond with the measurement.
Yeah.
So celebrate individual wins, celebrate team wins, and respond when there's underperformance. These are difficult when you have a small business. These are difficult when you have a small team. But because they're difficult doesn't change the priority. You still have to do that.
Yeah, and I would say the measurements are easier, but the actual sitting down and having that coaching conversation of here's our metric, here's our goal, here's our vision, and you're not performing to that.
That's right.
That's the hard part of having especially a small team.
It is, and I think you can address that with good leadership style. There's actually 2 kinds of cultures I think are called for by the leader, and one of those cultures. And by culture, I mean a series of behaviors that become just the way we work.
Right.
That's a culture.
Yeah.
So the first one is a culture of constant improvement.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to talk about getting better. We're going to evaluate. We're going to review. We're going to look at the numbers, and we're going to come in then and seek to improve those numbers. So first and foremost, a culture of constant improvement. We did great, but we are going to continue to do great, and we're going to continue to do better.
Yep.
That has to be the culture. So it should not be a surprise when my owner or manager sits me down and says, let's talk about your performance. I don't need to feel defensive. I don't need to be uncertain about what this means. I don't need to fear for my job. It's just our culture. We're getting better. We're evaluating. We're looking to improve. The second culture I think that's crucial for the management to create is a culture of optimism.
Yeah.
We can do it. You can do it. We're going to sit down and talk about how you are going to get better because we know you can and because we want to and because it's who we are. So all of us aren't optimists, but we certainly can have a culture of a can-do culture. A can-do. I call it optimism, but at least it's a culture of belief, a culture of confidence.
Yeah.
That we've got the plan, we've got the process, we've got the people. We're going to work to get better.
You're not blaming.
No, we're not blaming.
You're taking accountability for the things that we can change.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I think all of that then, and everything we said here comes back to management and ownership behavior.
Definitely.
Certainly we want our team to perform. The team is the front line. The team serves the consumer and the customer base, but the team has to be led by people who understand this culture.
Yeah. So I think we've gotten, we've hit this one pretty hard. I think that a team is part of everything that we do. No matter if you're in an accounting department, if you are alone on the sales floor on a Saturday, if you are, just feel like you're the owner and that you're the only one who cares about the team, part of that issue is on yourself.
Well, it's your responsibility.
It is your responsibility. So I think that is oftentimes these owners or managers feel alienated. They feel like they have no one who cares as much as they do.
And it's then their responsibility to change that.
Yes, it is. And I think that the point of this topic and the point of this podcast is to let you know that cultivating the team environment is, first of all, not that difficult, but it is extremely important and often overlooked.
Well, look, we've said before, I'll say again, I think it's a Thomas Edison quote, every great idea eventually puts on overalls and looks like work.
Yeah.
So it's a great idea to have a team.
Yep.
It's going to be great for your customer base. It's going to be great for your experience. It's going to make you money to have a great team. But eventually, you're going to have to do some things. And I've got 5 things here that I think, while we're talking about this ideology of a team, there are some fundamental ways to do that. This may not sound sexy, but the root cause of not having a team and the pathway to correcting that and building a great team are all in the same fundamental approach. One, if you're going to define the contribution, you do need to have job descriptions and have clarity around the work. So that great, a good job description may not sound fun and exciting, but it defines the contribution.
Yep.
A review process. You must tell people how they're doing. You must talk with them about the job. You must talk with them about the opportunity and the improvement. Third, you need incentives. People need to have the answer to what's in this for me. What's the opportunity for me? Fourth, you are going to have to measure. You're going to have metrics. You're going to have the key productivity metrics of your business, and they have to be transparent. And fifth, like it or not, you're going to have to train your people. You are going to have to invest in your people. You're going to have to insist on improvement. And while all of that sounds like, well, we ended up right where I thought we would end up, or we ended up with the same 5 or 6 things, and I would say, well, I'm sorry that it wasn't magic dust for you. If you're building a team, you must surround that team with clarity, with opportunity, with development, and with measurement. And that's the secret to any team, whether it's baseball or whether it's retail.
Yeah, unfortunately, at the Man Group, we don't have any pixie dust to sprinkle as much as we'd like some to sprinkle on people's businesses, to sprinkle on the team to make it more of a team. But good. Dan, it's always awesome to have you on the podcast. I wish you were a guest more often. Wow, you're guest.
I'm a guest now.
You've been demoted to guest.
It's about time.
Yeah.
The world says, finally.
Yeah, finally. So, of course, I think, as always, in the spirit of mandatory listening, we always welcome questions, always welcome challenges that you guys have with your individual company. And so, end of the podcast club is always send us an email, send us a question. We love to get back to you guys, and we love hearing from you. So, thanks for joining, Dan, and thanks for listening again, guys, and we'll talk to you next time. That's it for this episode. If you like what you hear, subscribe and leave a review on our iTunes channel. We'll see you next week.